Good morning, saints of God. I wanted to get on here and answer a question that I think is going to be beneficial to a lot of people. So I'm going to answer it on here to bless everybody that might have had this question as well. So the question is, last night you said, Sharani, that mediums, witches, warlocks, sorcerers, palm readers, tarot card readers, they can't access heaven. But you also said that the medium that Saul went to, Shippo Samuel, a holy man, forward for him to talk to Saul. So is it that she accessed heaven? Like, what happened there? Because if they can't access heaven, how could she have pulled Samuel forward from where Samuel was? Was he not in heaven? So this answer is going to be twofold, okay? The first part is understanding the time that we are in when we're talking about Samuel and Saul. Heaven as we know it hasn't been established in the way that it is right now. So back then, the dead went to a place called Sheol, which is the land of the dead, which is the spiritual realm, okay? And we talked about that, so you guys should know what the spiritual realm is now. So they died and they went to the spiritual realm, and there were levels to it. Depending on where you died would tell your position. We know this to be true because you see Abraham and the poor man in the bosoms of Abraham, and Lazarus went to this place called hell, and they could see each other, and there was access for them to be able to see each other, right? Because the rich man was like, please send Lazarus to, give me some water because he was thirsty, whatever. So there's levels to it. Back then it was the Sheol, it was the land of the dead, or the spiritual realm is where they went. So she wasn't accessing heaven, first of all, as we know heaven to be. Heaven today is the only way to access it. Jesus said is the only way to the Father is through the Son. Nobody comes onto the Father unless through me. That's one thing. The other part to that is Jesus gave Peter the keys to the kingdom of heaven, so that you know that the gates to the kingdom of heaven now is locked. So nobody can just waltz into heaven without permission, without authorization, and without God knowing that they've accessed that realm. Like, you can't just walk into there, okay? Now, and back then you couldn't walk in there at all. Like, it just wasn't available to anybody. Saints, nobody could go to the realms we call heaven today, okay? And these are two separate places. The land of the dead is at one place, and heaven is a different place. So that's the first part. The second part is mediums, witches, warlocks, sorcerer, palm reader. You have to understand that these people are working outside of the will of God. They might be gifted and they're using powers of God, but Satan also still using the power that God gave him when he was cast from heaven. But Satan doesn't have the authority that he had when he was in heaven, right? So these people are gifted and they have access to the spiritual realm, but they don't have access to heaven. Okay, and so the only way that these mediums, these sorcerers, these palm readers, these tarot card, whatever all these people are, can access these realms is through somebody. Okay, either through a demon, and when I say access the spiritual realm, I mean to access information in the spiritual realm. Okay, because they're not authorized by God to access the place. And when you don't have God backing you, then you need permission from somebody else to access these things. Okay, so you could be gifted in the spiritual things. You could see ghosts, you could be able to see the spiritual realm, but not have access to information in it. Okay, because the spiritual realm is just like here on earth. If I go to the desert, it doesn't mean I'm going to see somebody. So unless I go to the desert and know somebody in the desert, then I can access that person. It's the same thing for these witches and warlocks. They got to have permission to access certain things. So what happens a lot of times is they're working with a familiar spirit or a demon because they don't have access to information. They don't have permission or authorization from God to access these things. So they need permission from somebody. So they get it from a familiar spirit or a demon. And a lot of times these mediums, these spiritual people, they can't really see who's before them. They can't see that that's not your grandmother, or that's not your aunt or your uncle or whoever you're calling forth. They can't see that because they can't really see in the spirit. Okay? They can only see to the extent of the familiar spirit that's with them. Okay? And a lot of times these demons can transform into anything and appear to be that person to them, and they don't know that that's not that person, that that's a demon. And how do I know this to be true? The medium that Saul went to It wasn't until Samuel came forth that she recognized that Saul was Saul. If she was a prophet like me, if she had authorization like I do, the minute you come forward, I can tell who you are in the spirit. I can see you. I know your whole life story because God gives me access to your whole life story, right? God authorizes me as a prophet to know who's before me, to know if you're a demon, to know if you're sent by God, to know who's before me. So if she had the authorization of God, she would have known that that was Saul. She would have known that Saul was looking at to scheme God to find out information that he couldn't get because God didn't give him access to that information. She would have seen that. She would have not need Samuel to come forward. And then what she do? She panicked because she was like, oh my gosh, this is a trap. Saul has trapped me so he could kill me, so he could weed me out amongst the witches and kill me. And Saul was like, that's not what I'm doing. Tell me what Samuel's saying because I need to know, right? So she couldn't see spiritually. She couldn't see. So they can't see beyond the extent of the person they're accessing. And the only reason she could access Samuel was because she was using the portal or the doorway called Saul. A lot of us don't understand that you are a doorway to the spiritual side of you. Okay, and so if I access you, I can see all the information pertaining to you. I can see all the people pertaining to you in your life. I can access you. So this is why it's dangerous when you go to these people, because if they're working with a familiar spirit or a demon, and the minute you give them permission to access you, guess who else has permission to access you? That demon, that familiar spirit. So now you just gave permission to something to access you that now you're not covered by God. So what happens after that? Most people that go to these people end up having ghosts in their house. They get haunted. Their whole finances fall apart. Their life fall apart, and they don't know why. Well, you just went into a realm and you just had somebody access you that should have never been accessing you, and you find yourself in trouble because God says that the minute that you go to a medium, to any of these things, he cuts you off. His face is turned against you and you're cut off from the people. So that's the first part. God's covering leaves you. God's grace leaves you. And now you're exposed spiritually because you went into a realm with no covering, and the person you went in seeking information from also doesn't have the covering of God. Oh, by the way, they're working with demons and familiar spirit, and you just gave them permission to access you. This is why when Samuel told Saul, you're gonna die tomorrow, the medium couldn't do nothing. What's she gonna say? She don't even have authorization to be in there, so she can't help Saul. She can't say, man, pray to God, maybe God forgive you, maybe repent. She can't say none of that. She has no covering by God. She's not even authorized to have him in the spiritual, right? So he found he knew that she was gifted. He knew she was gifted. He knew how to access the spiritual. He knew that she could access Samuel through him. He knew that because Samuel was linked to Saul. The deep call onto the deep. Samuel, a prophet. Saul was once a prophet, calling on to each other. So she accessed Samuel through Saul. That's the only reason. So when you go to see these people, the reason your family members, are being pulled forward, or the information about your family's being pulled forward, is because that familiar spirit now has permission to access your whole life. When before they didn't have permission to, but you gave them permission when you stood before the woman and said, go ahead and give me a reading. Go ahead and do this. And she's like, all right. And you don't even know what you're giving. You don't even know what you're giving up. You're giving up your covering and your grace from God. Dangerous. So I just wanted to clarify that. I hope that makes sense. They can't access the heaven. What? Imagine that. Imagine a medium go into heaven's gate where it's guarded by angels. You can't just walk in there. And she's like, I have, sister so-and-so, and she needs to see her mom, and she needs to know her mom made it to heaven. The fire that God would pour on them. Jesus. But we don't even think, right? We don't even have the common sense to process that. Like, the fire that would pour on her. Anyways, I hope this makes sense. God bless you guys. And you have a wonderful day, okay, guys? Later.